Guys, how you doing? My name is John. Thank you so much for tuning in. One thing I want to do in the month of December is to highlight channels that I enjoy and expose those channels to you through my channel, if that makes sense. I'm really thankful for the YouTube gaming community. I wouldn't be doing this without your guys' support, honestly. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun as well. And I've been doing this for 6+ years, and I'm tremendously thankful. So what I want to do is share the love and share the support to channels that I really enjoy watching as well. And I just know there's a ton of other channels that are out there as well, and they're really hard to get discovered, right? So the first channel I wanted to show you guys is a channel called Cygnus Destroyer. His name is Matt. He's got a great series called the LJN Defender, among others. In this video, he's going to be reviewing a game called the Friday the 13th for the NES. But he reviews other games, mainly retro games for classic consoles like the Genesis, NES, etc. So hopefully you guys can subscribe to him, show support. I'll put a link to his channel below. Thank you for watching. Thanks for your support for my channel as well. And happy holidays, guys. We'll see you guys soon.
Hello everyone, if you don't know me, my name is Matt and I go by Cygnus Destroyer on YouTube, and more familiarly I'm known as the LJN Defender. If you couldn't tell from that name, I have a reputation for liking games that a lot of people consider to be bad. I get some enjoyment from games like Action 52 and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They're not great games, but I think they're, fun to an extent. And another one that has a very bad reputation that I'm going to talk about right now, and this is the video that's going to be shown, is on Friday the 13th for the NES, which I talked about in LJN Defender. That's a game that I like. I don't really think it's a bad game. Is it a flawed game? Absolutely. Is it cryptic? Oh, definitely. But I think it's good, and it's very underrated. So I had a very fun time. I was really looking forward. When I started LJN Defender, that was one of the episodes I was most looking forward to doing, and now it's been done. Actually, it's about 1.5 years old now, but yeah, it's still a great video. It's one of my best. So yeah, if I was gonna show one video to people to get a taste of what I do, then yeah, this is one of the best ones to show. So yeah, check it out. I think you'll like it. Well, I hope you like it. And if you do, consider subscribing to my channel. I'm sure John has a link in the description. I'm getting pretty close to 10,000 subs. I might actually be over 10,000 by the time Gamester posts this. But yeah, watch the video. Hope you like the video. And like I said, consider subbing if you liked it. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Here's the video.
My name is Matt, and I review retro games. Like anyone who's into gaming on YouTube, I'm a huge fan of the Angry Video Game Nerd, and he's one of my biggest influences. But unlike a number of his audience, I enjoy most of those turds he rips apart, and that's why I now don the moniker of the LJN Defender!
Happy Friday the 13th, everybody! I'm braving some serious spooky scenery in order to bring you this very fitting LJN Defender episode directly from Camp Crystal Lake on Roger Clemens MVP Baseball! Just kidding. This is far less horrific than that. Of course, I'm talking about Friday the 13th for the NES.
Friday the 13th is based on the hugely popular slasher franchise of the 80s, and this game was released in early 1989, shortly before Jason Takes Manhattan, the 8th entry in the series, hit theaters.
As I mentioned in a previous video, this is one of the LJN releases that I didn't get to play when I was a kid. I remember seeing it advertised on a poster on my cousin's wall and being fascinated by it. It seemed so taboo to me. An NES game based on a gruesome R-rated movie. It took one element that was safe territory for me and combined it with the dark and creepy VHS tapes that gave me the willies. Needless to say, I became a huge fan of the genre a few years later, and I finally watched the entire, at that point, 9-film saga over a few weekends with my cousin Andrew. As for this LJN title, I didn't play it until after I watched the AVGN episode on it, and this was one of the first carts that I picked up after getting back into the NES. That nerd episode is hilarious and one of my favorites, but James didn't paint the whole picture about this Atlas-developed mature 8-bit offering. Friday the 13th has gotten a reputation for being too difficult, and many people have written it off due to this. My goal here is to not only stick up for one of my absolute favorites in the LJN published catalog, but to show that it's not as hard as it's made out to be. Hopefully in the process, a few more of you will find the enjoyment in this survival horror predecessor that I do. Man, I better finish this quickly. This set's getting too eerie for me.
The proper mood is set right from the start, with the graphic of the knife flying into the iconic hockey mask ripped straight from the poster for the final chapter. This is, without a doubt, one of the coolest intro screens from the entire NES library. It screams that this isn't the normal colorful kid-friendly fare. There's no fantasy tales about princesses here. This is adult subject matter with blood and guts aplenty. Hell yeah! After this, it's right into the action, accompanied by Hirohiko Takayama's atmospheric tune, which I adore. It has a similar vibe to a lot of Hiroyuki Masuno's work in Deja Vu and the rest of the NES Kemco trilogy, which are among my favorite soundtracks on the console. Spectacular music aside, there's no story and no cutscenes, other than the message about lighting the fireplaces. Just choose a character and start the playthrough. As anyone who's watched the AVGN episode knows, there are 6 counselors to choose from. George, Mark, Paul, Laura, Debbie, and Chrissy. They each have different attributes. Some are faster, some are slower, some can jump higher than others. Mark and Chrissy are the most well-rounded of the group, so stick with them as the A-team. Like pretty much anything with the LJN rainbow emblazoned on the cover, a variety of criticisms and complaints have been directed towards Friday the 13th over the years. One of the first complaints is that the default weapon, the rock, is virtually useless. It's true that when it's flung from the standing position that it arcs over most of the enemies. However, there's a simple solution. Crouch and shoot. From this position, the rock's trajectory is still curved, but it's low enough that it's guaranteed to hit the endless undead enemies.
I like that the first weapon's kinda crappy and advances over time. It's like Castlevania and the whip. The basic whip is rather weak and the range is next to nothing, but it's all gravy when the power-ups are collected. James mentioned the knife, which is definitely a step up from the rocks, but that's just the tip of the weapon iceberg.
Let's reverse this a bit. As I mentioned before, the main task that is given to the player is to light all the fireplaces. This is performed by the lighter. The lighter, as with most items, is triggered to appear by jumping in the air. The lighter serves multiple functions. It not only ignites the fireplaces, but it's required in order for essential items like the knife and key to appear. The key is used to locate the secret cabins in the woods and the cave, but I'll get to that later. In contrast to the rocks, the knife shoots straight ahead and does more damage to enemies, but that's piddling next to the machete. The machete appears on the trails after 60 ghouls are destroyed. The machete takes out the zombies and birds in one hit, and is a valuable tool in dealing with the silent antagonist, but even it's chump change in comparison to the torch. The torch is conventionally obtained by lighting all the fires in the big cabins. It doesn't take that long to get acclimated to this new environment and complete the objective, but it's quite time-consuming. The torch is mandatory to make progress, especially since it takes 1 life point, yes, 1 whole life point off Jason for each hit, but luckily there's a much easier method of equipping this powerful weapon. You just have to seek out 1 specific cabin in order to get a note, which is accomplished by pressing select to access the menu and choosing the take option by pressing A. Enter the woods next to it. Head to the right and enter the first path you see twice in a row, which leads to the secret cabin. Exit and re-enter, and a note will appear. Return to the cabin, and there you go. Torch City. Repeat this as necessary for as many counselors as needed. While it's true that the preset rock is rather wimpy, the torch is available from the start of a playthrough with the help of this method. The torch is a total WMD, so I think that a little inconvenience at the start with the pebbles can be forgiven. Another complaint that's been mentioned time and again is that the map is confusing. Moving the character right on screen can result in steps towards the left on the map. I'll admit that this can get rather annoying, but it also makes sense within the level design. The majority of the main routes are laid out in a circular pattern. In other words, if you keep going in one direction, you'll eventually end up where you started. Hence, the discrepancies between the location markers. All I have to say about this is to just do what I do. Pause the game frequently to consult which direction to go. There's no penalty for doing so, and Jason's not going to finish his homicidal rampage if it's left idle on the pause screen for 5 seconds. Speaking of which, that leads into another commonly held irritating factor of Friday the 13th, the Jason alarm. This goes off whenever a cabin is under siege by the mute masked maniac. A countdown timer appears near the health bar when this goes off, and the player has to make it to that cabin before the timer reaches 0, or else it's lights out permanently for the innocent campgoers. Frequently, the threatened cabin will be on the other side of the map. Surely it's impossible to make it before Jason drops the axe, right? Absolutely it is. If you're doing it wrong, it's not necessary to walk around the paths jumping over countless zombies to get to the cabin. All that has to be done is to head into the nearest small cabin and press start. From here, move the cursor to the counselor who is nearest to or inside the cabin under alert. Press start again, and that character will be controllable. Maneuver them around the room until Jason pops up. Problem solved.
As for Jason himself, on the first day he's fairly easy, even with the puny pebbles. It's just a waiting game. He's lurking in one of those dark corners. He always seems to pop up when you least Holy Scheherazade! Whew, that was scary. But that was the risk that I took by filming from the scene of the crime. Anyway, let's get this back on track and hope that there's no more unpleasant interruptions.
Like I was saying, Jason has to be stopped from his killing spree, primarily targeting the Camp Crystal Lake children. Of course, this goes against the movies, where Jason mostly killed teenagers with a few adults thrown in here or there, but whatever, video games. Purple-clad Jason has to be defeated 3 times. Which kinda makes sense. That title screen is based on part 4, which was Jason's 3rd starring role, so I'll go with it. This is accomplished rather slowly, so practice those dodging skills to avoid Jason's fists and machete slices. The psychopath generally fights until he takes a few hits, and then he retreats. For now. Jason has an annoying habit of attacking the cabins on the water regularly. In these instances, it's best to use the weaker counselors like Paul, George, and Debbie as cannon fodder. There's no need to feel bad about this. It's survival of the fittest sorting out the natural order. The first order of business is to power up Mark, Chrissy, and possibly Laura. Get them the more powerful weapons, collect as many vitamins as possible for each, and choose one of them to don Jason's mother's sweater. It basically functions as armor, reducing the amount of damage taken for each hit. The sweater is obtained, not surprisingly, by taking it from Pam Voorhees herself. Or rather, her floating decapitated head. Like Jason, Pam can be fought 3 times, and the sweater was received after the fight on day 2. These battles can be pretty tricky, but unlike the showdown with her son, these are completely optional. It's not necessary to get the machete, sweater, or pitchfork from her, but they can make all the difference between success and failure in the conclusion. As Friday the 13th draws near the end, Jason's behavior becomes ever more bloodthirsty. His attacks speed up tremendously, and his appearances out on the trail drastically increase. He's still manageable in the cabins on day 2, but day 3 is a completely different story. When this point is reached, the best strategy is to take the fight to him on the trail. Use the counselor with the sweater and just hammer the B button until Crystal Lake is forever rid of the scourge of Jason Voorhees. Maybe.
Friday the 13th isn't a straightforward dive right in type of game. It's quite obtuse, and before tips videos and FAQs were readily available, most likely required Nintendo power or countless hours of trial and error playthroughs to learn the ropes of. I'll admit that when I first played it, I didn't know what I was doing, and ultimately, I had to consult strategies online, most helpfully this video. With that said, I've always enjoyed Friday the 13th, even before I had the knowledge to beat it. It may deviate greatly from the films, but I wouldn't change a thing about this glorious neon-tinged cartridge. In fact, I think I'd go as far as saying that it's my favorite of the LJN published games on the NES. I'd recommend everyone who doesn't own a copy to pick one up, or for veteran gamers who already have it in their collection, to play it again for old time's sake. It's tons of fun, it's proto-survival horror at its finest, it's super cheap, and I'm beyond happy to add it to the list of victories for the LJN Defender!
You again! It's my responsibility to send you to hell where you belong! Oh, hi guys. You probably thought I was a goner after my ruckus of Mr. Voorhees, right? Nah. Jason and I are cool now. He's decided to seek out counseling and sort out his demons. Put down the knife, no more stabby. Took up miniature model making as a hobby. He's actually a really nice guy when you get to know him. We're gonna get brunch next week. It should be fun. Anyway, in honor of what day it is today, I've decided to take advantage of it in the most appropriate way possible. Movie marathon! I'm not sure which one to start with. Though I definitely know which one to close it out with. The final chapter. 3 words, Crispin Glover dance. Oh yeah, baby! Now, before I sign off, insert the usual social media spiel here, and be sure to check out Joe Goes Retro's video on his top 5 favorite LJN published games on the NES. I have it on good authority that a certain somebody makes an appearance on that, so be sure to check that out. Link in the description, annotation on the screen. Check it out. Oh, also, be sure to come back in July for the debut of the 3rd series. It's going to be really exciting. But enough about that. Let's get my on. See you later.